find your levelness in the seat bones and hold onto your knees. Just spend a little time just making sure that you are indeed sitting level. So hold onto your knees and elevate your heart area up towards the ceiling. And maybe it's only when you start to lift the chest that you realize, oh, actually, this doesn't quite feel right at the hips. So maybe move the buttock flesh out to the side, or if you're on kind of a beanbag cushion like I'm on, then you can just adjust your position so that you can lift up into the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Spend a few moments listening to the sound of the breath. Filling both lungs evenly and exhaling evenly from both lungs. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Just spending a little time in observance of the breath can be enough to just prepare your brain for the practice we're going to do. So as you inhale, observe how the chest rises upwards and outwards. As you exhale, observe how the chest lowers and the ribs contract. And with an exhalation, bring your hands into Namaste, lengthening from the armpits into the elbows. Pushing the elbows into the heels of the hands into the fingertips. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. So although your eyes are closed, can you keep your eyes still in the sockets? Just listening to the sound of the breath, feeling the chest rising upwards and outwards with the in-breath and the out-breath. Just drawing your focus and attention into the physical act of breathing. Using that observation as an opportunity to just draw the mind inward, just focusing entirely on the breath. If you can, that can be difficult, but just aim to observe your observation inwards. With an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in your heart area, and then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold onto your knees, elevate your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across. Just observe how, if your body is feeling a little tired, that turning to the right can be really transformative. Maybe there's resistance, and of course we respect and acknowledge that. But can you breathe into that resistance? Use the out breath to breathe beyond the resistance. So that doesn't mean push it too far. It just means acknowledge any resistance that you feel. And draw your attention beyond that resistance, but without disrespecting that resistance at the same time. Come back to the center, hold onto your knees, elevate your heart to the ceiling, take a deep inhalation, and then turn to the left. Again, just observing how you are effectively waking the body up with movement and breath. And then come back to the center. So we're going to turn one more time, but this time, rather than breathing from the bottom of the lungs to the top, I want you to see if you can draw the energy of the breath, of the in-breath, down into the abdomen, into the somatic region. So you can swap the crossing of your legs just to kind of give it some additional structural variation. And then again, lift up into the chest. Just immediately notice whether, when you just move the crossing of the legs, when you change the crossing of the legs, does that suddenly make you feel like you're kind of leaning to one side? So just adjust accordingly if that is the case. Just find that levelness. Take a deep inhalation down into the abdomen, and then with an exhalation, turn. And then with subsequent inhalations, try and draw the energy of the breath down into the belly button, into the abdomen, into the somatic region. Drawing the abdomen towards the spine with the out breath. So breathing into the abdomen, using the out breath to turn a little more deeply. And then come back to the center. Just hold onto your knees. The breath into the abdomen if you can, and then turn to the left. If that doesn't make sense, then just do normal breathing. But the shamanic breath really gets you in touch with your energy that you didn't even notice was there. And then with an exhalation, come back to the center. Come off your lift and then just sit yourself on your heels. So virasana, just sitting back on your heels, the big toes together, the knees apart, is a really good position to bring yourself into if you've got tired legs. So sitting in virasana is just a really good way to regenerate the energy in your legs. So first of all, just make sure that you feel level on the shins. So just focus on the feeling of the shin skin in contact with the mat. Does it feel like the shins evenly make contact with the floor? Try and draw yourself a 3D image of your body from the shins up to the head. If you can, stay with that shamanic breath into the abdomen. And then come forwards, trying to maintain that shamanic breath. And the shamanic breath becomes more difficult in Adho Mukha Virasana because we don't always give the abdomen enough space. Keep the chest lifted, keep stretching your arms out. Keep breathing into the abdomen if you can. Keep the seat bones down on the heels, stretching the arms away, and then bring your forehead down. So if you've lost contact between the seat bones and the heels, then maybe just inch the hands a bit closer to the head. Maintaining that abdominal breath. So you allow the abdomen to expand with the in-breath. To draw towards the spine with the out-breath. So there's a distinct restriction in the abdomen in this pose, but can you still make space? Don't forget about the arms. Turn your toes under, come up into, come up onto all fours. Bring your hands as wide apart as the mat. Turn your toes under and then come up into dog down. So bending your knees initially just to activate the tailbone region, lifting it up towards the ceiling. Maintain the breath in the shamanic region. Abdominal breaths help you to connect more efficiently with your energy. Tighten your kneecaps, hit the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. So that the backs of the thighs broaden outwards. Be on the tip, on tiptoes almost. Have the heels away from the floor. so that you can really lift the fronts of the legs, lift the backs of the legs, and then you can just try and bring the heels down a little. But even if you can actually quite easily bring the heels down, it doesn't mean that you should, because you lose the action of the fronts of the legs. Okay, step your feet forwards, just come up into standing position, and then get some blocks for your hands, and have your feet as wide apart as your mat, with your toes turning inwards so that the outside edge of your feet are lined with the edge of the mat. Just stand upright, lifting the heart area, activating the legs. Just have your hands on your hips to start off with, and just focus on drawing the breath into the abdomen, into the somatic region. Raise your arms up, have your arms wide to start off with, presenting the front of the body to the skies. And then hinge at the hips, and then reach down, find the blocks. Keep drawing the breath into the abdomen, activating the legs as you were doing in svanasana. Lifting the seat bones, lifting the tailbones. If you can go down lower, then do. Just observe and acknowledge how the somatic breath makes the pose feel different to usual. It might be something that's almost indiscernible, but maybe there's a difference in how there's lightness in the limbs really early on. If you can go down all the way to the floor, then do. If you can reach around backs of your heels without losing the action of the legs, then do. So if at any stage the somatic breath makes you feel short of breath or uncomfortable in any way, just go back to normal breathing. So go back to normal breathing, and then maybe return to somatic breathing once the breath is settled. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders, releasing the hands if you got hold of the heels. Just come back into half uttanasana. And then bring your hands into your hips, and then come up into a standing position. And then have the inner edge of the feet together, lifting up into the chest. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump the feet nice and wide. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out, and then face the front. Just go back to that somatic breath if you've missed some somatic breaths. And then come down, keeping both legs evenly activated. Turning the chest up to face the ceiling. And in trikonasana, go back to the shamanic breath. Just look down as your head over your foot. If it's not, lift the chest, squeeze the front leg, buttock bone forwards a little more. And then come back up to the center. Just swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. With a shamanic inhalation. And then go down on a shamanic exhalation. So don't labour the breath. Stay in observance to it. And then come back to the center. Bring the feet parallel. And then step or jump your feet back together. And then come back into Tadasana. Just lifting up into the chest. Just continuing, if you can, to breathe into the abdomen. Just allowing that natural expansion of the inhalation and the contraction of the abdomen with the out breath. So give the breath space in the abdomen. And then bring your feet hip width apart for padangusthasana. So the feet are hip width apart and the toes are turning in a little. If you know that you can't reach your toes, then hook a belt between the big toes. So you've got a belt and you just hook the belt between the big toes like this. And then you come forwards. So doing it around the big toes rather than all of the toes makes you activate the big toes in the way that you would if you were holding onto your feet. So just if you're using the belt, then just gently just kind of walk your hands down the belt and just come as far as it feels doable for you. Just be really cautious if you've got a bad back. Just don't come forwards too quickly or too far. Just use the belt and just observe the kind of the feeling within the pose. And it's all about stamping the big toes into the floor and trying to pull them up off the floor at the same time. So you can still do that with the belt. So just have your feet hip width apart. You go slightly wider if you know that you can't, if you can reach your toes with your feet wider apart. And then lift up into the chest. Draw in the shamanic breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Raise your arms up, or you can just hold onto the belt if you've got hold of the belt. And then hinge at the hips. Come forwards just a little at a time, keeping the back straight, keeping the arms lifted, the head extending forwards, the heart area extending forwards. And then just take hold of the big toes. wrap the thumb around the inside of the big toe, and then just hit your legs back. Project the chin and the chest forward. Breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. And then stamp the big toes down like you want to, like you want to stamp the belt or the fingers into the floor, and then try and rip the big toe out of the floor like you're trying to rip a nail out of the floor. Keep breathing samanically if you can. Just alternating that with normal breathing if you need to. So samanic breathing is effective for the almost tranquilizing of the body within the pose. So often you'll find that areas of resistance feel less resistant when you breathe into the samanic region, but it can leave you feeling slightly breathless. So just observe that. Just drawing your elbows out to the side if you're in padangusthasana, with holding onto the big toes, drawing the body in between the gap between the legs. So the physical body starts to feel physically lighter with the samanic breath. Okay, release. Come into half uttanasana if you held onto your onto your toes, or just come up into a standing position if you were using the belt. And then if you're standing, then come down onto your knees and bring yourself up into dog down. If you're in half uttanasana, just extend the legs upwards, project the chest forwards, keep that inhalation and exhalation into the abdomen. And then walk your hands into dog down. And have your hands shoulder width apart, your feet hip width apart. Maintaining the samanic breathing. Observing the lightness of the body with that samanic breath. Observe the lightness in the core of the body. If I'm holding you in the pose for too long, then you can rest. But if you can stay and maintain, then do. Often you find when you breathe samanically that you can hold the pose a little longer. Just go with what your body is telling you. So you can often stay a little longer because the samanic breath introduces a lightness in the pose. Just stay for as long as it feels effective for you. Okay, come down onto your knees if you're still up in dog down. And then just sit back on your heels, big toes together, knees apart. And just take some normal breaths for a moment. Just observe the feeling of lightness within the physical body. And then just come forwards into Adha Mukha Virasana again, just so that you get that stretch of the front of the body, maintaining the somatic breath if you can. Maintaining the connection between the seat bones and the heels and lengthening deeply into the arms. And then bring the hands underneath your shoulders and then just push yourself up back into Virasana. Just observing your energy and observing your energy in the head after applying some pressure to the forehead. That lightness on the inside. Okay, we're going to do supta virasana. So use whatever lifts and equipment you need. So a bolster on its own might be plenty, or it might not be enough at all. So you might want to put some blocks underneath the bolster like that, so that you make the bolster higher, or you might want to even slant the bolster a little so that it's lower here, and you've got a bolster, a block under one side. But to be honest, that is probably a little unusual, so it's better to have it that way, I would say. So no, actually that might be all right. So just so you could use it on a slant as well, although you might want your slant a bit higher than that. So just use whatever equipment that you feel like you might need, and have a folded blanket for your head. So supta virasana isn't always the most popular of poses, and it's often because you don't put enough lift underneath, because sometimes it feels really strong in the fronts of your legs. So the trick is to give yourself more height in the lift, so to lift it up more, so have more kind of blankets or cushions underneath you, and then you'll find that you can kind of stay. If you're really not going to do it, then supta padangusthasana, so the feet together this way, the feet together, knees apart, and then you just come down, lifting the chest in the same way. So otherwise, supta virasana, so the knees are together, the feet are apart, and then just get space in the backs of the knees and roll the calves outwards as you come down, and then just adjust the position of the bolster. You don't want to be sitting right on it at this stage. And then lift up into your chest. Lift the chest as you come down, just gradually coming down onto the elbows, keeping the chest lifted, keeping the head level with the heart area, and then have the blanket from underneath your head. So initially, this can feel a little uncomfortable in the lumbar. So get hold of the lumbar skin and draw the buttock flesh down towards your knees. So see if you can lengthen that lumbar area by drawing the buttock flesh down towards the knees. Turn the tailbone up to the ceiling and then draw the abdomen towards the spine, broadening the abdomen into the abdominal walls. And then you may find that you are able to settle into the pose, or you might just need a little bit more support in your back. Just find the right position for you. So once you've found your relative comfort within the pose, then draw your breath back to the somatic breath. Just breathing into the abdomen. So this is really good for tired legs. Really good for a tired body. So aiming to keep the knees together as much as you can. And breathe into the abdomen, allowing the rise and fall of the abdomen. So just breathing consciously into the abdomen region, feeling that lightness around, that kind of light energy around the abdomen. Allowing that feeling of lightness to distribute itself into areas of resistance. If you want to extend the upper body a little, then reach your arms up to the ceiling, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then extend your arms along the floor, and you get a really good opening of the abdomen. So if it becomes too much in virasana, then you can come into padangusthasana with a bolster underneath you, supta padangusthasana. Just raise your arms to the ceiling, swap the interlock of your fingers, turn the palms all the way out again, and then raise your arms away from the head along the floor. Of course, your hands won't reach the floor because you're on a bolster, but you can still extend them down towards the floor. And then release your arms, just bring your arms back to the sides of the body, just resting your arms on the floor, feeling how the chest is lifted and open. And then just, we're going to bring ourselves out of the pose. So whether you're in supta padangusthasana or supta virasana, just push your elbows into the floor, lift the chest first, try not to poke your head forwards. Just come up onto your hands, and then if you're in padangusthasana, then bring the knees together. If you're in virasana, then just come onto all fours, and then whichever pose you were in, just come onto all fours, and then just gently turn the toes under. If you've been in virasana, there'll be resistance, so just respect that, and then come up into a narrow dog down. Just straightening the legs, bringing the heels down to the floor. Although we tend to resist bringing the heels down, it's a good stretch in the calf muscles after virasana and padangusthasana. Maintain the shamanic breath. When your legs have recovered, just come down onto your knees and then just sit yourself into cross legs. Just come into cross legs or half padmasana, whichever is more comfortable. And then hold onto your knees. Lift up into the chest, draw the breath in through the nose and down into the abdomen. And then with an exhalation, turn to the right side, maintaining the abdominal breath. And then come back to the center, hold onto your knees. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the left. Just turning the opposite way that you turned previously. And then come back to the center. Just swap the crossing of your legs, just do the unnatural crossing of the legs, lift up into the chest. And then one more time, just turn to the right. Just drawing the abdomen across. Come back and then turn all the way to the left. And then come back to the center. Just observe the energy that you have released through your practice. And then come down onto your back. Just have a blanket for your head. And just move the equipment out of the way just so you can stretch out. Make sure you're in a really good straight line right down the center of your mat. And then just for a couple of minutes, we're going to release down into the floor. Just let the muscles of the arms and the legs release. Just go back to normal breathing. Allow the body to become heavy on the floor. And radiate your energy out from the bones into the muscles, into the organs, into the flesh and into the skin. Distributing that feeling of energetic lightness evenly down into the toes, into the fingers and into the top of the head. Just basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then very gently just start to wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. Bend your knees in toward your chest. Just have a little rock from top to bottom, from side to side, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then stretch out into the top leg, come back up into cross leg position. Just a final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Just drawing the breath in through the nose and down into the abdomen. Just to be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. And radiate some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you have really lifted your energy. You've given yourself a good way to wake the body up after maybe not having great sleep, and hopefully your legs feel like they've had a good stretch as well. So thank you very much for joining me.